Here, as you can see, we're starting to assemble Rick's short block before sick week. We got a few weeks before sick week, so trying to get it together. Just waiting on one or two more things, but we decided to start getting it together. We'll go over a few things that are different, new, changed, upgraded as we put it together. As of right now, we just have the same crank that was in it. It's just a Bryant billet center counterweighted crank. You see it's all polished, and as you see, it's also got a nice fresh coat of paint. We got the cam fixed, got new BAM lifters, new GRP connecting rods, new Y-scope pistons, new total seal rings. We're also running a different head stud this time. ARP does not offer like a good head stud. They only make it with their 8740 material. We found another company that makes them out of a tool steel, so we're going to see how those work out. Because we've obviously had some head gasket stuff in the past, so we're just trying different things to try to get ahead of it. So we'll go over the cam repairs and the new rockers and everything too as we put this together. Right now I'm just trying to center the thrust, make sure we have enough end play. If not, then I'll have to, probably won't based on previous years and builds on this, but try to center it so that way the crank always tries to go forward. So we try to make sure the top and the bottom part of the thrust are in the same plane. That way one's not like in front of the other, so that way it's even wear on it. So we push the crank forward, tighten this down, and then we'll check it. And then when it probably doesn't have enough, I'll take it back out and we'll have to sand the front of the thrust bearing. So let's see what we got. Yep, not enough. So we need to take like, it's only 2. So we'll have to take a couple thou off the front of this thrust, because without the cap we have like 10 or 11, so we should have we'll be able to get it where we need to be. So take it back apart. So now we're sitting at about 5, which I'm happy with. Little sanding on the thrust, and we were good. Here we got Rick's cam back from Militia. They originally made the cam. It's out of tool steel, but as you remember, we had the lifter issue and it hurt a couple lobes. They were able to fix it. They said take a little bit off the base circle and everything. I think it was only like 2 thou or something. But the one lobe they had to weld. They had to weld up some of it, and you can kind of see some of it here. But it should be good to go now. So now we just got to put some oil on her and put her in. We're going to start the process. As you'll notice that there's no pistons or rods in the motor. Just waiting on some bearings to come back from Calico. We coat all our bearings. So as soon as those show up, we'll check some oil clearance there and knock those in. But do as much as we can due to sick week being only a couple weeks away. So hard to get to. The way I like to seal stuff up is I like to do a tack coat on both sides. So I just run a thin little bead here, and then I'll run over with my fingers. Make sure everything's dry and oil free. And then, like I said, I run this tack coat. Just make sure it's adhering good, and I've had really good luck with it not leaking. We don't run a gasket on this, just due to spacing of everything, so we rely only on RTV. Run a tack coat on this side too. Usually try to make this look nicer, but with Rick needing this like yesterday, just trying to do this as fast as possible so that doesn't leak. Just run a thin little bead on this. Try to give it just a little extra. There's no dowels on this, so we only rely on the bolts, which fit pretty snug, but we're going to put it on there kind of loosely, and then we're going to press the crank gear on to make sure it's centered. Always run NICs, only galling. This adapter here to help press this on. Alright, so now we're going to check rod clearance. Did the same thing with the mains, we just didn't go over that. You measure the rod journal, set your caliper to that setting that you measured it to, and you put it in your dial bore gauge, and then you set your 0. Get it? Some of these are go smooth and some don't. then once you get 0, you got to keep floating and just making sure that it doesn't go past it. All right. Always follow the recommended lube that the rod manufacturer recommends. Can't really have too much. You still probably have plenty, but I like to put a little extra on them. Most rod manufacturers have a torque spec. These are 75 foot-pounds, but they also recommend stretch. They want to tell you how much rod bolt stretch they recommend. So we're going to check that. We do that on every rod bolt, just to make sure. A lot of times, at least in my experience, we'll probably have to go higher than the recommended torque spec to get the recommended stretch. I just make sure you got the proper clamping that they would, that the rod bolt would like. So to do that, I use 2 just because it makes my life easier and I don't have to think as much. We use a set of these stretch gauges from ARP. Goes in between, and you set your 0, and then this will measure how much it stretches after you tighten it. So we'll go over that. So now we're going to check, prep the rods to check rod clearance. So put the bearings in the rod, put them together. Already lubed these. So put in a vise here. We're going to not just torque these, but we're going to check rod bolt stretch. It's the better way to torque anything, is when you can check the actual stretch of the fastener. So to do that, we're going to use a rod bolt stretch gauge from ARP. You can do this with 1, but I prefer using 2. It just makes my life easier. So to start that, make sure the bolts aren't tight. We'll put the gauge on. There's like a dimple on each side, and we'll 0 it. So that one's good. We'll go to the next one. I have noticed that when you use the recommended torque of most rod manufacturers, it doesn't quite get to the stretch that they recommend. For these, they want 5.5 or 6. So that's what we're going to shoot for. So I'll clamp her down, turn my torque wrench on. Pull back out and see. Or like 5.6, that one's good. I've already upped the torque on that based on previous experiences. That's 5.5. So that rod is torqued properly. And now we'll check clearance. Alright, then we'll just stick this in here. The rods recommend, being aluminum, they give you a recommendation a lot of times, 2.5 to 3.5. Looks like we're at 2.9, so we're going to roll with that. Yep. Alright, for wrist pins we run a Trend. It's a 927 pin with a 250 wall. We DLC coat all our wrist pins. They just last a lot longer. We have literally no wear on these, and these have been in this motor since 2018. It's blown up a couple times, and they're straight. Coating's great. There's no wear. There's just 3 random ones, just all good shape. Highly recommend DLC coating on your wrist pins. So now we're going to put some spiral locks in. A lot of people dislike them. I don't seem to mind them too much. Once you get the hang of it, they're not too bad. Little pocket screwdriver, help save your fingertips. Put a little oil on the wrist pin. Again, these are DLC coated, also with wear. Put on the rod. These are size specific, if you didn't know that. But get a little spread. There we go. Just continue on the line. Right now we're going to start file fitting rings. We run Total Seal on this motor. We've run gapless for a long time, gapless tops. Really helps with crankcase pressure. I know some people don't like them. We haven't had any bad experiences with them. So we run them on this one every time. So now we're just gonna stick it in the bore. Got a little Turing guy here. We'll push her down and see where we are to start, and it's already touching. You can see there's no gap. So it is right there. So that being said, I already did the math based on the bore. We're looking for 33 thou, so I'm going to start there. I'm going to take 33 off and put it back in and check again. So then we put the ring in after we filed it and deburr it. Take a tool to square it up, or you can use a piston, and make sure it's all set up on the back side of it. And we'll take the feeler gauge, 33. Come on. It goes right in. So now we're going to put the rings on. Again, we're running Total Seal gapless, gapless tops. Rick's motors have always been gapless. We've had really good luck with them. I know a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I know some people don't like gapless, but we've had good luck with them, so his motor just continues to get them. I'll show you what that means here in a second. So I put the oil ring on. Ooh, slipping. Get this thing floating a little bit. Put the second ring on. So the top ring, this is the top of it. You see there's a groove right here. So we'll put this on like this. And it comes with like a thinner one that goes in. And then it'll go into that groove and help seal it up. As you see, now there's a piece there, so when it'll be gapless. I'll tap this guy in. Make sure the installer is nice and square. All right, we got all the pistons and rods and everything in. So now I'm going to stretch all the rod bolts just like we did on the bench. Check rod clearance. So we're just gonna do. I like to do them all once they're all in, one at a time, right in order, and then I'll mark them. So that way I know it's done and I didn't forget one. So zero the gauges out like we did before. Kind of figured out what torque they seem to like for the stretch. Bring them in kind of square. And then go for it. We'll check it. There we are. It's like 5.7 or so, 5.8. And that one, the other gauge. Right about there. I'm just going to go a little bit further on this one's like 5.4, and they want 5.5 to 6, so I'll put a little extra torque on this one. That's why we check them. Just a couple foot-pounds. There we are, 5.5. One thing too to double check before we put the pan on is rod side clearance. GRP says minimum 14, maximum 25, so pulled one of each. 14 goes in, no problem. 25 does not. Alright, so now we're going to put the oil pump on. We just run a standard Melling high volume on this guy. Side note, always open your oil pumps up, especially on like these cast iron ones, and look at them. This one in particular had a piece of like cast iron, like just part of the casting, still stuck in the outlet. They had to remove and filed off all the burrs and everything that were in there. So yeah, we're gonna put this on. I already installed this, but not all the way. So I'll just pick up depth on the pan after I get it on. That's why it's kind of a wrong angle here, but with aluminum rods especially and bigger strokes, you really got to check your clearance. So on this one, I should have showed that, we had to clearance some things to make sure we had enough room for the rods. This will clear once I pull it down into place. If anything, I like my RTV. Try really hard to not have any leaks. Alright, so on the last video, the teardown of this, one thing we didn't do on video was open up the oil pump, and a couple people were asking about it. So I figured we'd open up on this one and show you. It is definitely has some metal go through it. As you can see, it is not in good shape, and then if you take it apart more, it's even worse. You can just see the sides all scored and bad. You can see everything that's gone through this. Try to get a light here on here. You can see it is in really bad shape. Just a lot went through it from that camshaft. So there you go. Now you can see it's bad. I'm getting everything set up to degree in the cam. Just verify top dead center. And then we'll put this where it belongs and then start with checking the cam. Because I didn't move anything from the last time. So in theory, same cam, same crank, same timing, it should be the same, but always check. there's plenty of videos available going over this exact subject. There's no reason to waste your time on that. If you don't know how to do it and you want to know how to do it, there's plenty of videos.
All right, we are T-minus 20 days before we have to leave. I have a half of an engine, the short block per se. We're about to get ready to drop the lifters in, which I guess we'll talk about one of the changes that we made this year. It's the new BAM DLC coated bushing lifter. Instead of having roller bearings in it, it's got a steel bushing that is diamond-like coated or DLC coated, which is some pretty hard, badass stuff. So instead of these coming apart and needles going everywhere in the engine, they don't. So hopefully they don't wear out and they last. This seems to be the ticket that a lot of the drag and drive guys are using, so I'm jumping on board with them. Shout out to the guys over at BAM that gave me a great deal on these after my troubles last year. So I'm pretty excited to try them out. And that'd be it. All right, now we're getting the lifters put in. We're about to degree the cam, check push rod length, and start putting the heads on. So one thing we did change, we went to a Cometic head gasket. They do make copper head gaskets, believe it or not. Guys over at Cometic hooked us up. This is a 80 thousandths thick. I went from a 80 thousandths I was a 65 thousandths, and the only reason why I did that is because the head's been milled so much. So we're trying to get our compression back to where it wants to be, and hopefully not have to put push rods in it because I'm running out of money. So on top of that, to clamp the head down, we called the guys up over at Extreme Head Studs. These are H13 head studs that clamp way tighter and hold a lot more torque than the standard ARP 8740s that I've been running. I'm hoping this is going to help my head gasket issues that I've been having, where they leak in between the cylinders. To kind of give you an idea, the torque spec of the 8740 was like 90 foot-pounds, and these were like 120 foot-pounds. So I'm hoping this is going to clamp that head down and keep the boost where we want it inside the engine.
All right, so things have been milled. We got different lifters, rockers. So we're just double checking push rod length. So I'm checking it now. So I'm checking it and then check it on the old ones to see if we need to order some more from Manton or not. Yesterday we got the heads on. Valley pan and the oil pan. Matt wasn't here, so we didn't get any filming of it, but measured for push rods, and with these rockers, even though they're both T&Ds, just one steel, one aluminum, the length has changed. So we are now waiting for Manton to make us a set of custom push rods. Hopefully they'll be here in the next few days, and then we can really button it up. We'll prime it here on a stand and then put it in the car. At least that's the plan, unless Rick changes it on me, which he does often. So that's where we're at right now. So it's mostly buttoned up. All right, we got our push rods overnighted from Manton. They got them done quickly for us. They're great to deal with, real friendly people, and they seem to care about your deadlines. On Rick's, we run a 7/16 push rod with an extended tip, just because of how the lifter is. In the lifter bore, and then on the other one we run a single taper, so it tapers down 7/16 up here down to like a 3/8 ish, and then it tapers the rest of the way down to the 5/16 ball, due to it having an offset lifter for the intake push rod. This year we upgraded from T&D aluminum rockers to a set of steels for a little more reliability. Never had an issue with aluminums, but decided to not risk it. So we got them, and we're gonna start putting those on, get it lashed, and then I'll seal it all up with tape and everything, and Rick's gonna drop it in his car hopefully today or tomorrow. Now putting on these external drains. We try to keep a lot of oil in the top, just to keep the valve springs cool, helps them last longer, and then we also less likely to have issues with rockers and everything. So we run external drains. Plus this head in general doesn't drain back very well. So we've got plenty of oil flowing over everything to keep it cool, and then we just need to get it out and back into the pan. So we run one on each side. Alright, we're getting ready to prime this engine on engine stand just to make sure that all the rockers are getting oil. And we're using HPL oil, their 2050 break-in. Great oil, we use it here often. Also make great turbos, which he is also running the HPT turbos. Avis injectors, make a lot of different oils, and I recommend them. Valve covers have seen better days. Don't have time to do anything about them right now. So maybe next time. We got her all finished up. See how these improvements do. See what else we need to improve after this one probably. As we know, Rick is hard on things. I'm sure he'll push this one even harder. And we'll see what the next weak point is. Hopefully we don't have any valve train issues or head gasket issues. So now we just gonna put it in tonight. Hopefully I'll have it running tonight, and we can check another car off the list as being ready to go.